Hello everybody, my name's Mr. Veale and I am the head teacher of Atwood Primary Academy, which is situated in Sanderstead in South Croydon. And today is Thursday the 21st of May, and in this very special and very important vlog I would like to give as much detail about the possible reopening of Atwood to children in nursery, reception, year 1 and year 6, and of course the children of key workers and our more vulnerable children from the 1st of June. And there's going to be quite a lot of information in this video, so what I suggest is that at any point pause it or rewind it and have a look at it again. So what's happening? So really we know that it's still not certain whether the government's aim of being able to open schools for children in nursery reception years 1 and year 6 will be achieved. My understanding as head teacher is that until the government's 5 tests have been met, it's unlikely that any schools will be able to open their doors for more children. I also understand that it's the plan of the government to make their final announcement on Thursday the 28th of May, which is still a week ahead. So I understand as head teacher and actually as a parent the huge amount of strain this uncertainty is putting on families and teachers and head teachers and of course senior leaders and governors. But here at Atwood we've taken the view that we have done as much forward planning as we can to open on the 1st of June. Now, if the government still decide that that date is not realistic because the 5 tests haven't been met, then hopefully our work won't go to waste because we will use our planning and our risk assessing later for when schools finally do open. But I would really like to outline for you how we've planned a partial opening for those selected year groups, as well as for the children of key workers and our more vulnerable children. And I also want to touch upon how home learning will be structured for those who've been asked to remain at home. So the first thing that I really want to talk about is the whole concept of bubbles. So protective bubbles, as we're calling them here at Atwood. So the senior leadership team have followed the guidance from the government on how to best keep the children safe as possible. And we've decided to organise the children in nursery reception years 1 and 6 into bubbles. And the choice of the word bubble is an important one because in our detailed risk assessment, one of the factors that we've had to consider is the need to reduce the chances of the virus being transmitted across the school. So therefore, we have introduced this concept of bubbles whereby children are taught in small groups, so no more than 15, by teachers or teaching assistants. So each of the bubbles will have a teaching assistant or a teacher, sometimes both, depending on the age of the children and the bubble's needs, and how, of course, the senior leadership team can deploy staff best. Each bubble will be invited into school as Bubble A or Bubble B, and Bubble A children will be able to come to school on Mondays and Tuesdays. Bubble B children will be able to come to school on Thursdays and Fridays. So we know that the teachers here have done a lot of organising as to which children will be assigned to which bubble, and we have ensured that we've considered siblings and accounted for them. I wish to point out, however, that it's simply not possible to take into consideration everybody's working patterns when we're deciding whether it's Bubble A, Monday, Tuesday, or Bubble B, Thursday, Friday. And so I really would like to ask for your patience and acceptance of our choices. So if your child is in nursery, reception year 1 or year 6 and is not a key worker child, we would like you to indicate your desire for your child or children to return to the school using a Google form link, which has already been sent out in the letter that you should have received. The deadline for this is 12 noon on Monday the 25th of May, because obviously we are going to have to gauge numbers and that will help us deploy staff to the right bubbles and get everything organised. Now, the next section I want to talk about is the provision for key worker children and our more vulnerable children. So, in the case of key worker children and those who are more vulnerable, the senior leadership team have decided that in order to reduce the risk of cross-contamination across the school, these children will be in their own separate bubble or bubbles of children grouped no more than 15. But this group of children, this bubble of children, will have in it children from nursery right up until year 6. And so you will understand that that will present us with real staffing challenges, but we feel that this is the safest approach to adopt. And you'll remember that last week I communicated to parents that as the government has broadened its desire for additional places to key worker children, to let Atwood know so that we can plan for the 1st of June onwards. So this information is very important, and I'd like you to take note of it, please. So number 1, if your child has already been coming into Atwood as part of our key worker and vulnerable group, they will continue to have provision for 5 days per week, but will not be able to join their class bubbles. In the case of them being in nursery, reception and years 1 or 6, their provision will be in a separate key worker bubble. If you wish to take up the offer of a key worker place for your child, and that it is only for 2 consecutive days, so either Monday or Tuesday or Thursday or Friday, they may be able to join their class bubble in the case of them being in nursery, reception and years 1 or 6. And the final point, so point number 3, if you wish to take up the offer of a key worker place for your child for more than 2 consecutive days, then they will be assigned a place in a separate key worker bubble. I know that's quite complicated, but I have laid it out in the letter that you would have received today. Therefore, I would like all key worker parents to respond to a separate Google form so that Atwood has the most realistic pupil numbers for the 1st of June onwards, and so again allowing us to deploy staff. And so once again the deadline for that is at 12 noon on Monday the 25th of May. Now I want to talk to you about what's happening on Wednesdays. So the school will only be open for key worker children and those who are more vulnerable on Wednesdays. So actually their provision can be up to 5 days per week as described in the letter, and it can also be a flexible 5 days. But Wednesdays are really going to allow the staff here at Atwood to carry out a midweek deep clean and to allow for teachers to have some time for planning and preparation and their other duties. Now, I want to talk about how long we're planning on this kind of bubbles setup. So we've looked at the timescales, and it is our proposal that the new bubble system runs for a minimum of 3 weeks, but we'll keep it under constant review. And so, depending on the reviews of the outcome, and of course the government guidance as that gets updated, the senior leadership team plans either to broaden out or narrow in the provision, but safety will always be at the forefront of our mind. And I want to point out to you that the key worker and vulnerable children group will remain to be and will always be our most important group to offer provision for. Therefore, should Atwood's ability to deploy staff to nursery, reception, year 1 and year 6 be compromised due to things like staff illness, then I may have to take the decision to reduce the number of year groups we can open for. That's very important to say. So, in summary on that point is that the key worker children and the vulnerable children are the most important group that we will be providing for. Now, I know a lot of you will be really worried about sending your child back into school, and so I wanted to talk about our risk assessment processes. So, the partial opening of schools is very contentious and very worrying for many of you as parents, because on the one hand, families need to balance the opportunities provided to them to return to work, but on the other hand, families need to be satisfied that it will be safe to send their children back into an environment in which there will be a greater chance of exposure to COVID-19. And also there will be a greater chance of their children potentially not necessarily becoming ill themselves, but bringing the COVID-19 disease back into the house and therefore spreading it to vulnerable members of family at home. I cannot and will not say that Atwood is a totally risk-free environment. It's up to you as a parent to have the ultimate responsibility as you have for your child's health and safety, their mental well-being and their physical well-being of your own children. So you must satisfy yourselves that the choice of sending your child back into school outweighs the risk that I've just explained previously. What I can tell you is that SLT and governors have been involved in detailed risk assessments with actions that aim to minimise the risk of the virus transmitting too much. And all of this has taken heed of the DFE guidance around proper and rigorous hand washing and hygiene regimes, thorough and well-considered cleaning regimes across the school, and taking all reasonable steps to enable social distancing, staggering the entry and exiting of children and putting in place regimes for managing hygiene for staff when they need to deal with things like first aid issues. The senior leadership team have also stipulated that only one parent may pick up or drop off, and that parents will not have the access to the school office or the ability to speak directly to school staff. I wanted to also touch upon some other very important key considerations for you. Therefore, Atwood will not be penalising parents for not choosing to send their children into school. We are, however, asking that if your child does come back into school, that you are contactable throughout the day, just in case a member of staff needs to contact you. Let's talk about uniform now. As the majority of children are in for 2 days, we're asking that they wear their school uniform. We understand that it might be a little bit small and the shoes might not fit, so we're not overly worried about this. So we will accept, of course, a mix and match approach. Ideally, we would like the school uniform or the clothing that the children have come in the day to be washed every night, but we also do understand the challenges behind this. But as a minimum standard, we would expect that clothing is washed each week, however. So let's talk about walking on site. So the senior leadership team have put in place measures for a strict one-way system as well as staggered timings for each of the year groups. In order that you and your children understand these routines, I have added into this video them in action, so you can actually see myself walking through the one-way system and explaining the timings. So that will come up at the end of this video. Whilst we're at it, there's a bit of a call to action. I thank you for having a look at our video on YouTube. Please do subscribe, because this is becoming a very popular way of sharing information, and I don't want anyone to miss out. So let's talk about these staggered timings. So for key worker and vulnerable children, the start time is 8:30 AM and the entrance is via the junior hall. The end time for the key worker and vulnerable children is 3:30 PM and they're exiting via the junior hall. Let's turn our attention now to year 6. The start time is also 8:30 AM, entrance via the year 5 classroom external doors. So if you're a member of 6D, you will be based in 5RB, and if you're a member of 6S, you will be based in 5I classroom. At the end of the day, you're going to be picked up at 3:30 and you will exit via those year 5 classrooms. Now on to year 1. The year 1 starting time is 8:45 and the entrance is via the year 1 classroom external doors. The end time is 3:15 PM and the exit is also via the year 1 external doors. Let's talk about reception. The start time is later. It is 9:15 a.m. and the entrance is via the nursery gate at the front of the school and into the reception area and through the classroom external doors. The end time for reception is 3:15 and the exit is also via the nursery gates and straight out down the one-way system. Now let's talk about nursery, our youngest children. So those children who are in nursery in the morning, your start time is 9 o'clock in the morning and the entrance is into the children's centre. Your end time is 11:30 and it is also exiting from the children's centre door. And afternoon nursery, your start is 12:30 p.m. and your entrance is the nursery gate into the nursery area and then into your classroom. And then the end time is 3 p.m. and the exit is via the nursery gate and then down the one-way system. Now, let's talk about meal times. So, in order to encourage, as far as we can, social distancing, meal times will be staggered and school meals, which will be prepared by AIP, will be packed lunches each day. This is to allow children to eat out of doors when it is fine or in their classroom when it's wet. Those children entitled to a universal free school meal, so do you remember, that's children in reception in year 1, or those children who are entitled to a free school meal will receive a packed lunch prepared by AIP. It is preferable for the children to have a school packed lunch in those year groups to minimise the risk of infection spread. But if you would rather send your child in with a packed lunch, we ask you to please provide it in a hard and washable packed lunch box and also in a disposable bag. Now let's turn our attention to water bottles and sun protection. We are asking you to provide your child with a water bottle every day, which is washed and sanitised every night. As we will be outdoors more, please also ensure that you apply a high-factor sunscreen onto your child at the start of the day and provide a named sun hat, which can be washed. What's happening about PE and playtimes? Well, the children will have staggered playtimes and they will still take part in their PE and school sport, and therefore they will need a PE kit which will also need to be washed each week. So the senior leadership team will ensure that as far as possible children are well spread out across our lovely site to aid on social distancing. Let's talk about outdoor learning. Well, the teachers have been asked to provide as much outdoor learning as possible. So I ask you, please can you therefore send your child into school with a suitable washable coat or mac, and also please note that even these waterproof coats will need washing each week. A lot of you will be worried about PPE, so Atwood has taken note of the department's guidance around the wearing of PPE. There is no requirement in the guidance for school staff and children to wear face masks, gloves on a routine basis. The exceptions, of course, to this rule are when my staff or myself have to manage a first aid or an intimate care issue with a child, and therefore it's absolutely impossible to keep 2 meters social distancing. And so then our staff will wear PPE. So that could include goggles, aprons, it could include face masks and gloves. Now, please don't worry and let your children not worry if they see members of the senior leadership team who are out and about helping with the entrance and exiting of children and parents wearing masks. That's only because there's more of an exposure to more people, and so we're just protecting ourselves. Now, there's an awful lot of information there, but I now want to turn to those children who are being asked to remain at home. So I know as a parent and as a head teacher that home learning and motivating the children at home is really hard. So Atwood's home learning offer is developing and improving from the 1st of June. We will be migrating, as I've explained before, over to Google Classroom. I'm not saying that this is going to be without any hitches, but the platform is much stronger than my USO, and I know that a lot of families would like the introduction of more video messaging and interaction between the teachers and the children. And so this platform is able to be offered much more easily, so Google Classrooms, and that will be being introduced from the 1st of June, and I'm hoping that you're going to find that beneficial at home. But please be aware that with more teachers and teaching assistants in school, because they have to come back to teach the bubbles, it may be the case that your child's home learning is set or responded to by another member of the Atwood team and not necessarily your class teacher. However, I also wish to point out that because we're asking so many teachers and teaching assistants to come back, I need to keep home learning under constant review. And I may have to make the decision that because teachers are working in school pretty much full time, they may not have as much of an opportunity to upload and respond to home learning as well. It might be that we have to go over to the government-backed Oak Academy website materials, but we will try our very hardest not to do that, but I just wanted to point that out to you. Now, it's been an incredibly long vlog and session, so what I've done is I've mentioned some things in my summary. I'm also sending out, with the more detailed letter, a PowerPoint presentation, which is a number of different slides where I've tried to simplify the information for you as well. So I am aware for some of you that this may raise more questions, what I've spoken to you, than it actually answers for you. So please do not worry, and if you've got a question, I would like you to contact the school office, and those questions and queries will get back to SLT so we can answer them. So I'm alerting you to be prepared for some children in selected year groups to return from the 1st of June, but I'm also alerting you that none of this may happen should the government on the 28th of May decide simply not safe to do so. I want you to become more alert and subscribe to the Atwood YouTube channel. I would also like you to follow us on Twitter, and that is #AcademyAtwood on Twitter. And please read your emails, read the newsletters that we provide, and of course keep your eyes on our Academy website as well. Now, finally, remember the deadline for filling in the appropriate Google form for you is 12 noon on Monday the 25th of May, and don't forget the links are to be found in the letter that I've sent to you. Now, I just want to say, don't worry, please remain patient and be certain that even in these uncertain times, we will work this out as our wonderful team Atwood. And just remember that nothing is impossible. Thank you, take care. Hello everybody. What we wanted to talk about here was when you come into school, you are going to be actively encouraged to go to the sanitising table and make sure that you've put some sanitizer on your hand. And please don't be worried, but one of our members of staff may well be wearing a mask. That's nothing to worry about. That's just to add that extra layer of protection. And so you'll be familiar here with our Children's Centre building. So this is where, if your child is in morning nursery, we would like them to come on site no earlier than 9 AM, and you can see walking into here, and a member of staff will welcome your child and take them into the setting, and then at the end of their session, which will be 11:30, it will be in reverse. A member of staff will check that somebody there from home is there to collect their child, and then what we would like you to do is come this way over the main path, and then to walk down this side and then leave that way. So what needs to be said here is that there might be the need, or there will be the need, to socially distance here. So we are asking you to remain those 2 meters apart. So it might be that a number of parents and children do have to stagger down this path. So we just want you to be patient with that. So you'll see that I'm standing a little bit further in towards the Atwood site, and this is where the afternoon children will come in for their afternoon session at 12:30, and they will come in this way, and once again a member of staff will be in this area here by this gate, and they will welcome your child in. But don't forget, we will ask you to remain 2 meters apart so that everybody's safe, and they will be collected here. So afternoon nursery children can be collected here at 3 o'clock, and that will ensure, hopefully, that the whole area here doesn't get too congested. And we'll go on to other year groups now. Okay, I now want to talk about the children in reception. So if your child is in reception, because we're having a staggered start and a staggered end to the day, we would like children in reception to come into this section again no earlier than 9:15, and that is because that will give us plenty of time to get our nursery children in through the gates and settled. So for a child in reception, it's 9:15 and through the gates, and we would like them collected from here at 2:45. That's 2:45, and if you can be punctual but not get here too early, because we don't want people to mingle too much. So that's really important. It is going to be a collect and go as quick as possible. And so when you leave after picking up from reception again, you have to go across the main drive and then down on this side of the main drive, and then that keeps everybody separate. Okay, so now I want to talk about if your child is in year 1 or year 6. So we've dealt with the children in nursery and reception, but you can see here we've laid out plenty of tyres to encourage you to follow a strict one-way system. And so probably the best thing is that I'll take you on a walk, and you can actually see where you'll be bringing your child, or if you're one of the children yourselves watching this film, you can see where you'll be coming in. So here we go. So you'll see here that we've got the barrier which stops, I'm afraid, mums and dads, from anyone entering the main reception area. We're not wishing to be rude or anything. This is all about keeping our staff and your children and you as safe as possible. And so this is very important. If you want to contact the staff or the office, I'm asking that you do it in 3 different ways. The first way is by email. That is the most preferred way. If it is absolutely urgent, we ask you then to phone the school office and somebody will be able to help you. Or finally, you will know that there is a post box just round the corner if you're dropping anything off. So that's really important. Just to reiterate, we're not trying to be rude. We are simply looking towards keeping as many people as safe by not allowing freedom of movement like we would in normal school. So we're now going to continue down towards through the quiet playground and onto the junior playground. So you'll notice all the way around we've laid out some tyres. That's not to go into the middle, that's to keep you inside the tyres as we come round. And once again you can see our tyres going down here. and we're asking everybody to come down this path and not that one. So it's coming down here. This section here will be taped off. We don't want anyone walking through. We want people to come straight round. And it's at this point for year 6, because year 6 will be using the year 5 downstairs classrooms, that you will need to keep your 2-metre distance, and that might well be that you have to go round the corner as well. There should be a member of staff here to support you, and so this will be one of our year 6 classrooms, and then it will be down here. Again for our second year 6 classroom. Now, something to note is that we're going to ask only one parent to bring their child onto the school premises, so we will not be having, unfortunately, 2 parents dropping off, and this is very important because we want as least or less people as possible coming onto the school site. So because year 6 are our eldest children, it might be that they actually travel to school on their own, or for the first few days they might want to come with their one parent, and they should come straight into the classroom. We have cordoned off the junior playground. That's really to aid the one-way system, but also we're not asking the children to play and congregate first thing in the morning. So from 8:30 they go straight into their classroom and then get on with their learning for the day. They will be able to use the junior playground, of course, during play and lunchtime, but obviously those times will be staggered. So we'll then go on and see where year 1 will go into their classrooms as well, and then finally I'll show you the route for mums and dads, but only one parent, remember, to leave our site as well. Many of you will be really familiar with this area, and so you would have brought your child for year 1 down into this area here, and we will ask you to once again either drop off here, and we're again going to make sure that one of our members of staff is always on hand to enable the children to come in quickly and quietly, but unfortunately they're not there to answer any detailed questions and so on. Just bear with us and be patient with that, please. We're asking also that you don't come in to this area here, because we want to have a barrier between our staff and the children and parents coming in. And also here for the second year 1 class. Now, when you have dropped your child off, we're going to ask you, if you're in year 1, to walk back down this way and then come through here, so that we don't cross paths here. We're going to ask you to come this way, a little bit further on, take you on a bit of a woodland walk. And then you can see that your path will be down here, but it will be separate from those parents potentially coming in the other side of these blue benches. At this point we're asking you to come right the way round. And remember to aid that one-way system. When you're leaving Atwood, you're going to keep on this side, and if you're coming in, you're going to keep on that side of the tyres. So when you're coming out, it's between the cars, which will be on your left, and the tyres, which will be on your right. This one's fallen over. So you would have followed the one-way system round. So I want to thank you for being so patient with us, but we feel that we've set up a good system as long as everybody remembers that it's one parent. Unfortunately, there's no lingering. There's also no access to the office other than through email, phone, or the post box. And also, at all times, we need to be thinking about our 2-metre social distancing. So thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who's done this absolutely wonderful banner. So well done. I just wanted to go through some of the timings again for you, because I know that you will be anxious to make sure that your child is on time. And so year 6, we're opening our gates here at 8:30. It won't be before, so 8:30. And then you will be collected at 3:30, so you've got a slightly longer day. But for year 1, you will be coming into school at 8:45 and then being collected at 3:15. So that's the first thing I want you to know. They're the timings for year 6 and year 1. Talk about the morning nursery timings, and we would like our morning nursery children to come in at 9 o'clock in the morning and then be collected at 11:30. And then for our afternoon nursery children, we would like them to come in at 12:30 and then be collected at 3 p.m. And so for our reception children, we would like them to come in at 9:15 and then for them to be collected at 2:45. So all different timings, but hopefully all of this information will be sent out in a letter to you. I wanted to say a huge thank you to all the children who did the thank you to NHS Hands. They're absolutely wonderful. But I wanted to talk now about the timings for morning nursery. And so we would like morning nursery children to come in at